Whoa.
Hey guys,
Greetings.
welcome back again to the Outer Dimensions podcast, hosted by Dre and Dave. Welcome again this week. Now, we had some difficulties last week, so it kind of pushed things off. But once again, welcome to the Outer Dimensions podcast, your podcast that covers everything that is sci-fi, action, horror, you name it, and everything in between, past, present, and future. This week, well, there was a little bit of a holiday yesterday, Independence Day.
Oh, Canada. Oh, wrong
No,
one. Wrong one.
no, that was July 1st, Dre. That
Yes,
was the
I know.
first.
My bad.
So,
My bad.
Dre, why don't you tell everyone what we're going to be covering today?
All right, folks. So first off, I want to just say there's a couple things I want to start off with. One, it was a blessing that I got a new computer so that the laptop doesn't look bad anymore. So that's one. The camera looks way better. That's why we had an issue because I was updating the operating system. So that's why we delayed. So we appreciate your understanding. And two, I want to shout Dave out for a second in a good way because guess what, folks? This guy here doing something big on Friday that we all got to be tuning in, and he'll talk about it at the end of the stream. But big props to my brother right here. Just want to put that out there because I felt good. I felt like he needs to get a nice little pat in the back. So today, as the title of this is, it is our Independence Day. Folks, we're going back in time. We're going back to a time when we had, yes, the cheat sheet. This is the dirt sheet. Duffman and Captain Spaulding, welcome. So we're going back to, and this is obviously Independence Day 1, then Independence Day, which they called Resurgence, and then Starship Troopers. Now, obviously, do the movies come out like that? No. So we're going to start with Independence Day. That's the first one, which is 1996. Now, obviously, on the screen, as Dave beautifully put it up here, this star-studded cast. This is probably one of the biggest things I'd seen since like putting a team together like the Avengers, folks. You had Will Smith, Vivica Fox, Goldblum, Pullman, Quaid, Judd Hirsch, Firestein, Mary McDonnell, Robert Loggia, Margaret Collin, and James Reborn. Now,
Okay, but let's not forget Data from Star Trek. Brent Spiner
oh,
is the
I didn't put
crazy,
the doctor.
conspiracy-driven scientist at Area
I should
51.
see. I should have put him in, and I thought about that, and I didn't. Hey, Colin, welcome to the chat, brother. Welcome to our stream.
Hey, what's up, EC Collects?
But yeah, like I forgot to add that his name there. So yes, could you scroll to the next thing, bro, so we can get to the page so people can see the beautiful movie poster that they have there for it? No, that Trooper's the other one on the slide. It's up.
There we go.
There we go. Now, for a lot of people, Roland Emmerich is a name that's very synonymous in Hollywood with a lot of great
Stargate.
movies. Stargate being one of them, and I mean probably one of the most iconic in sci-fi is Roland Emmerich. I love that. I loved Stargate, and
Coincidentally, he was working on another screenplay related to Stargate. Possible updates.
so we will keep you guys in the loop for that. Now, obviously, when we look at budgets, we're looking at names that were big. Jeff Goldblum, big name. Bill Pullman, big name. Randy Quaid, big name. Now, Randy Quaid, mostly we all knew him as the crazy uncle in National Lampoons, you know?
Yep.
And Mary McDonnell, we find that
Cousin
we
Eddie.
don't really notice her as a big name actress till actually Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
In the 2000s.
Yeah, she was in a few smaller films. Like she did a lot of TV, but she was in the Robert Redford, Dan Aykroyd kind of like conspiracy thriller Sneakers with River Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. But see, that's again like those.
Poitier.
And Sidney Poitier, love that movie. We definitely got to talk about that one because that's another like Avengers level of actors greatness. That was such a low budget film, but did so well. Obviously, when I talk about this movie, you have to look at the budget being $75 million, folks.
Yes.
For a movie to look at that, you're looking at paying Will Smith, who is making millions, hand over fist at NBC for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, was doing tons of music in the music industry. This is his beginnings. The rocket was strapped to his back, as they did WWE did with Roman. NBC did with Will Smith, and Will Smith was smart to run off with it. Vivica Fox was more like kind of like the
Vivica A.
after.
Because there
Yeah,
was
Vivica
another
A. Fox.
actress at the time going by
Yes.
Vivica Fox.
So Vivica A. Fox, thank you for correcting me. She was bigger in the more like Fox network shows. Like we saw her on Martin. We saw her on a couple like oh god, what was it?
She did like a lot of comedies. Like she was doing like Have Plenty with Jamie Foxx and a
Yeah.
few others. So I mean, yeah, she was definitely like, she had looks,
And she's a beautiful woman, and she did really well. Now, obviously, Bill Pullman, great actor. Jeff Goldblum, I mean, and Randy Quaid, like I said, Judd Hirsch. I mean, Judd Hirsch is a great actor. Done so much.
He did sitcoms. He was on Taxi and Dear John in the 80s and early 90s. But I mean, he was great playing Goldblum's father. I mean, the two of them, great chemistry. And
very natural.
Jeff Goldblum was not. He was. He's normally the leading man. So it was kind of nice to see him kind of like, he's sharing screen time. Like him and Will Smith have to become buddies. About what the third act of the movie basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
It was it's kind of cool seeing like, because I mean we had Bill Pullman as the president. Randy Quaid is the crazy. Well, yeah, far-fetched there, right? The crazy guy who claims that he was abducted once upon a time, but he's a pilot and they need pilots. Was it Adam Baldwin? Adam Baldwin is in here before he did Chuck and a whole host of other shows and movies. He's very early in this. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's a star-studded cast. I mean, they even had, now there was another Fresh Prince alumni in this movie.
Who?
The young actor who played Vivica A. Fox's son also played Nicky on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which is Will's youngest cousin after Aunt Viv had a baby.
That's right.
Vivica, Viv.
High five. High five.
Conspiracy. There you go.
High five.
So
yeah, folks, like this is just going down that cast. Now, obviously, again, worldwide box office, $817 million. This was the summer movie. I remember going to see this in the theaters. I was in college. I had just actually, this was right. I was going into college. So it was my freshman year. And I remember going in that summer with my mom. We went to go see it, and we were just like, it was just a blast. Like, my mom was totally blown away by the visuals, because you got to think the special effects on this movie was
came
fantastic.
Out on July 4th or around July 4th, if I remember correctly.
July 3rd.
Or July 3rd, yeah.
Now, mind you, we didn't get the Thursday night releases, folks. This was like this was before screener parties and all that stuff that we see now. So we didn't get advanced tickets. We saw this July 3rd in a full theater. My mom and I loved it, and may she rest in peace. Because my mom was very picky with movies, but like this was one of the movies she loved.
And just to confirm, this was, I mean, I would say this is probably was Will Smith's big blockbuster, because before that he was in Made in America, 6 Degrees of Separation, which really they were kind of a 6 Degrees of Separation. That's a fantastic film. Made in America was kind of not really, it was kind of like a semi-flop. He played like a small background character in that.
Yeah, Made in America.
But Bad Boys was 1995.
Yeah, Bad Boys. I think that blew him up.
I think if it wasn't for Bad Boys, he might not have gone, been looked at for Independence Day. But just want to throw that out there.
I think,
and Men in Black came after that, of course.
And Wild West came after that. Yeah. So eventually, all these action roles. Then eventually we start seeing Will Smith in the Gemini Man.
So he got typecast for punching people.
Very much so.
Chris Rock. What?
Get my wife's name out.
They've already photoshopped it so that it looks like he's punching the alien now on stage.
I love it. Welcome to Earth. Pop. That's like, come on, folks. The pop culture line is like everybody I've seen when you looked at memes and animated GIFs at the time. That's what it was. Now let's talk runtime. Obviously, for what we look at, and we've discussed this in other videos, and for people that are listening on the podcast, when we look at movies that are anything, I would say past 94 or 92, anything past 92, became an average of a minimum of 2 hours in the theater you were sitting. And then,
especially for summer movies.
yeah, for the big blockbusters, because the kids were out of school, date night, it was, you went to dinner. Tickets were cheaper back then. So
we had $1.50 shows back in the day.
Exactly. So you could have gone to see it then, but 145 minutes. So close to the 3 hour mark.
That's about two
2 hours, 2 hours, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So, Joe, welcome to the chat. Thank you so much for stopping by.
What's going on? JMC Collects.
So that's this right here, but I'm going to cover something that it says here in the right here. It said that the inside of the movies that it was going up against at the time was Twister and Mission Impossible. Now, obviously, Mission Impossible 1, we had Tom Cruise. Twister, yes. You had Bill Paxton.
Yep.
And
another Bill.
Helen Hunt. Yeah, another
Helen
Bill.
Hunt.
And Helen Hunt. And Twister was a fantastic movie. That was like,
Carrie Always is the pivotal bad guy in there.
God, that was so, of course.
I mean, but with that, it kind of wasn't all that much of a contest, because Mission Impossible, unless people grew up, because with it being 1996, people, by that time, like, there was a Mission Impossible TV series back in the 60s. So unless people really knew or watched those reruns with relatives, they weren't really well known. Like, they didn't know what the premise was of that. Independence Day, we had a familiarity with it. Or at least, the whole aliens coming to, because I mean, the big thing was in the commercial and the trailers, we got to see the ship blowing up the White House. We saw that in the trailer. So that was like, oh, we've never seen this before. We kind of have to go check this out. And we got, everyone wanted to see Will Smith because of Fresh Prince.
And Bad Boys, because we had, like you just said, the year before we had Bad Boys in theaters with Martin Lawrence.
I mean, aside from Bad Boys, 2 hour movie, maybe an hour and 45 minutes, whatever. The thing is, we were growing up in high school. Everyone was talking. Tuesday morning in school, everyone was talking about, did you see Fresh Prince last night? We were talking about that. I mean, so Will Smith was. I mean, he was in everyone's home. He was that friend you grew up. So like, oh, Will Smith's got a movie coming out. We got to check this out. So I mean, you had that draw. I mean, for the for the adults, for the older crowd, yes, you had Judge Hirsch. I mean, we had Robert Loggia. I mean, he's a great actor. Harvey Feinstein, we had all these other people that just going to draw in. So it had something for everyone.
Yeah,
Robert Loggia
was just huge. Now I want to read something that we have here, because I can't. It's obviously for you guys, it's blocked, and for obviously, again, I'm doing this for the podcast for you guys listening. The combined worldwide total of $817 million surpassed The Lion King, second only to the worldwide earnings of Jurassic Park as the highest movie of all time. So let that sink in, folks.
Yeah.
For 1996, this was the highest grossing movie, topping out The Lion King, an animated film, and then another blockbuster with Jeff Goldblum in it,
and
Jurassic Park.
I think we also have to bring up something else.
Go ahead.
Look at this day and age, because I mean, in the 90s and even to a point, maybe the early 2000s, that was the heyday of these blockbuster box office movies hitting the holidays, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, July 4th weekend. Now, unfortunately, because of what that happened in the world for a few years, hint, movies in theaters have a different kind of algorithm, if you will, a different kind of chemistry going on these days. We had one movie come out this weekend, if I'm correct, and that was Indiana Jones.
It was two.
What else came out?
I don't remember, but it was another. There was at least two movies that dropped this week.
So we only had two movies come out this week. And I mean, that's the thing. But were they Were they blockbusters? No, we haven't had a real big blockbuster hit on for the summer around July 4th weekend for a good minute.
And that's sad because
Yeah.
when you think about this, like and I know that other people have talked about this. I'm gonna throw a little love to our boy Carlos T3 Collects. He was talking with Sejaman on Friday night that they were looking at movies like blockbusters and they were going over some of the numbers. And when you just look at the numbers crunch, blockbusters are just not what they used to be. And exactly like Dave was saying, it's the times. It's we have streaming services and now we have advanced tickets that you get for free, and then you have screeners.
And it looks like we might be
movies.
inspiring Colin to go hunting for some vintage ID4 goodness. And that was the thing. Independence Day was known as Independence Day, but also as ID4.
Yes.
For Independence Day, July 4th. So that was a little hashtag abbreviation. But like Dre just said, the budget. Take a look at the budget. $75 million, and it made $817.4 million.
Well over almost 100% of the budget.
It made its money several times over, but it would be what, another 20 years?
Exactly 20 years. That's what the tagline for the poster.
20 years for a sequel, guys. So there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, yes, as Rory said.
Don't mention the movies these days aren't as good as they used. Don't mention the movies. No, we're not saying that they're not as good, but the days of having like Terminator 2, those massively just like they were just like the big drop box office draws. I mean, when you have like every 8 or 12, let's say 8 or 14 months, we have another Fast and Furious coming out. It's when it's wash, rinse, repeats, it starts to lose its focus.
Let me tell you what Joe just said. Put that up on the screen. What Joe just said. No originality
anymore.
And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to agree with you, Joe, 100%. Because you want to know something? The reality of the situation is this. Back when, and I mentioned this on Friday, when Carlos did his stream, that in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, early 90s, movie posters were art. Movie posters.
Oh God, they were.
These were like literally. You have guys that just collect movie posters, and
I worked for General Cinema, and like my bedroom when I worked for General Cinema in 1998 until about 2001. My bedroom wall was I almost started putting them on the ceiling. Believe it or not, I'm not lying. I had so many posters, like movies that Dre and I were talking about before the stream started. Blade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I had Blade. I had the Matrix poster. I had Independence Day. I mean, I had so many like movies, like Last Action Hero.
I actually had that poster. I got that poster.
I had stuff like Rumble in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
I had, like Operation Condor. I had a few, I love the action movies. But there was like movies like Pitch Black, which we reviewed before. That poster was one of my favorite posters I ever had. I mean,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let's check. That was the TMNT poster, the very first.
The original Ninja Turtle poster. I mean,
that poster was iconic, dude.
Listen, I have reprints scaled down, but I have reprints of the Ninja Turtle posters because they were just so epic back then. We got LeBron saying hi.
Hey, LeBron. But I agree, like Colin said, they're not focusing. They're not focusing on story.
Like Joe said, just shitty remakes, unoriginal copies is all that is coming out for the most part. Yeah,
there's gems. There are gems like Guy Ritchie's. We talked about this, and Colin and I agreed. Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, fantastic movie, under budget, but went to streaming, and then it wasn't heavily advertised. People were like,
I mean, see, that's another thing. Some of the movies that were like kind of crapped on, kind of shit on by the critics back in the day, wound up becoming cult classics. I mean, I'm sure in the future we're gonna do some lighthearted episodes. I'm talking about some funny movies. I mean, to me, like some of the
Ooh.
favorite movies I will watch are definitely kind of cult classic movies. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I can watch it over and over again. Okay. Don't laugh, and I know everyone in the chat's going to judge me. Howard the Duck.
Oh, Howard the Duck's
You know?
great. My wife and I love that. We have that
Last
on DVD.
Dragon
Oh, come on, Bruce Leroy.
with
Ain't
Timac
that- Wait, can we let's
and
go to
Julius
the chat
Curry
real quick.
III.
Let's hit up Duff what he just posted. I think that's great. I want to answer that.
Do you think I think CGI has a lot of studios dependent like we don't have a creature, so we're just use your imagination and we're gonna put it in post, and I think that's crap. Perfect example is, and some of the people in the chat, some of the people watching this, you're gonna laugh at me because you know what's coming. Ghostbusters 2016. Everything was overly CGI. Ghostbusters Afterlife that came out almost 2 years ago now. There was practical effects. They had some CGI, but most of it was practical effects. That is something I think is sorely missing. Look at Gremlins. An 80s movie, but Gremlins, they made the Gremlins look so damn real. Okay?
Not even just that. Like, again,
prosthetic makeup. Okay,
that
is something that is lost. I mean, take
Legend.
Yes,
the darkness.
Tim
Curry, the darkness, the amount of makeup that they had to put on him and the horns.
I mean, he said chin, the horns, like that was so heavy on him, but he killed it. I mean, take a look at. I mean, there's a lot of prosthesis used for Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Give respect to Jackson for what he did. I mean,
but see, Guillermo del Toro does the same thing now too, and that's why I like Guillermo del Toro. And a lot of people shit on me.
Pan's Labyrinth,
the Orphanage, Hellboy,
the Hellboy 1 and 2. I mean, it's just Blade 2. I mean,
the Shape of Water.
Like the prosthetics. I'm talking about the visual effects.
The vampire.
Yeah, like the hybrid chin that opens up, and you get the little sucker with the barbs, and just like the amount of like that. I mean, could he have done that with CGI? Yeah, but doing the practical effects. I mean,
which was a good effect because we missed that stuff.
Anyone who's a big movie fan, you might hear this, you might know this name, Michael Westmore. Okay, if you don't, Michael Westmore was the front runner, was the man on the front lines from the 80s all the way through. Oh, hell, even in the 70s, doing any kind of special effects, any kind of makeup application, whether it was just standard makeup or doing prosthesis. He was the man. Okay, there is the Westmore school of makeup and visual effects. I mean, Michael Westmore, he was doing Star Trek, he was doing Aliens, his people did everything out there.
Dude, think what we were just talking about when we reviewed Hellraiser.
Yeah,
the amount of prosthesis that went into Pinhead, and we can go down the whole gamut of all this.
Oh, definitely.
But I'm loving the chat. You guys are doing really great with this stuff, and I'm not ignoring you. But Joe, I want to just tap on you before we move forward.
It hurts the acting and storytelling. I agree 100% with you.
What his comment right here says, you really don't even see commercials anymore. Do you know where we see this stuff now? There's TV has stopped doing it. Where you start looking for your trailers is we look at the websites like Bleeding Cool or Comic Book News or CBR.
Yeah, but also some of those you got to be careful with. Like anyone who reads stories from We Got This Covered, I'm sorry. You need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, man. That's all I gotta say. There's some false news websites out there. You got to be careful. But honestly, some people might think this is kind of weird. I don't watch live TV.
Neither do I.
A lot of my time I'm watching stuff on streaming services, or I'm on YouTube doing stuff with all my friends, or researching videos. I worked for a cable company for 9 years. So I gave up cable and it is what it is. But yeah, you don't see commercial advertising. I mean, how many times you're seeing like big banners, big billboards of movies that were coming out? We don't see that anymore.
Now, mind you, you do at the parks though. Like, so if you go to
New
Universal
York
Studios
City, New
in
York
New York
City,
City, but
yes,
here in Charlotte, you
no,
don't see things like that. You don't see
no,
in Georgia. When I travel down to Georgia, I've never seen that sort of stuff. LeBron may know better, but let's move on to the next movie, and then we'll come back to the chat. So I love you guys. You guys are
yes,
being amazing tonight, just so y'all know. Now we're gonna fast forward a year later into the fall. Now again, one thing Dave mentioned earlier is seasons for movies. So when you look
yep,
at Independence Day was the summer blockbuster. We know that when movies hit the fall, it's usually either a Christmas movie. If you're around the November time, you're like a horror movie, and you don't really do too well until you get into the new year, because usually the new year is where they start saying, "Hey, that blockbuster you waited all year for,
well,
it's coming out."
this
And
movie was, I mean, honestly, like I really recently rewatched this,
it's so
and
good, so bad.
it's aged very poorly.
Oh yes.
But when you watch this movie, because anyone who knows action movies, you can recognize that director's name, Paul Verhoeven, because he was the guy behind the original RoboCop movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you get that now. Knowing that, or even if you don't know that, you're watching it, you can pick that up from the music, from the gratuitous gore, and also some of the bad acting.
Oh, the bad.
But you can even recognize one of the person who voices over like the fake news is our boy Red from that 70s show, who was also
In RoboCop.
Clarence Boddicker, Alex Murphy's murderer. So I mean, and let's be honest, this cast here, it's all pretty faces. These are not Oscar actors. I mean, Casper Van Dien, Dina Meyer.
What was it? Casper Van Dien did that WB Tarzan show, which is actually not
yeah.
bad.
No, but this, I think that was that might have been
that came after this.
This came after that.
No,
but he did come back. He did come back to the series years later, though. Believe it or not.
Yes, he did. Ironically enough, he did.
We got Dina Meyer, who I remember her best as from as a Barbara Gordon in a wheelchair and Birds of Prey.
For Oracle, for those of you who didn't know.
Yep. Denise Richards before Wild Things and before Charlie Sheen. Jake Busey, son of Gary Busey, which you can tell in the voice and everything, yeah. And PH, Neil Patrick Harris. And this is like a few years after Doogie Howser, I think.
This is quite a few years after.
Yeah,
this is about 4 or 5 years after Doogie Howser.
And I mean, well, honestly, decades before How I Met Your Mother.
But Neil Patrick Harris did a lot of great stuff. Hey, Collecting was cool. Thanks for coming through.
Hey, what's up?
Michael Ironside.
Saying, hey, yes. Michael Ironside, who, I mean... Sequest, Highlander 2, The Quickening.
Now, let's also not forget. Now, people think
Kid.
The Next Karate Kid. Michael Ironside, folks, was huge into TV shows in the 80s, but he also
in 2000s?
In the 2000s, but he also voiced Splinter Cell, the main character, and he carried his voice, because I remember I bought an Xbox 360 just to play that Splinter Cell game, which is still to this day
he voiced amazing. A lot of other people. He also actually voiced Darkseid for a quick minute during the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited series. He also played live action Sam Lane, General Sam Lane, on Smallville.
Yes, he did.
So opposite Tom Welling, and Tom Welling got a good workshop between working with John Schneider, Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder appeared on there. Just
the original
so
Supergirl, the original
John
Supergirl,
Glover.
John Glover was on. I mean, he had a all-star cast on there.
And I mean, one person I would love to work alongside would be Michael Ironside, because I mean he's that gruff guy who's known for being like just that a total jackass, total asshole.
He does that military role,
but
really
he could also play that, like you said, Sequest 2032. He was that hard ass, but he could also be supportive, and I think that definitely showcased him a lot. And of course, Patrick Muldoon was in there. But we're also forgetting someone here. And the
This
person,
is
a
who would
bad
I
guy,
forget?
a bad guy who appeared in Highlander 1, who also voiced Lex Luthor in Justice League, in
Oh
Justice
my
League Unlimited.
goodness. Oh God. Why do
A
I
person
can't
who is also voiced on the
Slade
SpongeBob
Wilson.
cartoon.
I know. Mr. Krabby. Mr. Krabby. I know.
Yes.
I love how he always gets me. I always miss at least one name, folks. So it's okay for those that listen to the podcast. This is my brother from another. He can make fun of me because I do forget. I know who the actor is, but I
Yes.
always forget to put their name in. So I always I'm like, is it too many
He's got a
names?
great kind of a voice, and
Oh, he was
he plays
Slade.
the drill sergeant in this.
He
Zim.
Slade Wilson.
Yeah.
Freaking. I mean, he's Mr. Krabby. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously we all know who we're talking about. And he was also in Deadwood. He was also in. He was in John Wick.
Mm-hmm.
4. So, I mean, I can go down the list, but I want to talk about some things about this movie that a lot of people didn't know. And when I did a deep dive into this movie and really got to kind of pick the bones of it, it's an interesting premise. So, this is actually based
Clancy Brown.
Thank you, Clancy Brown. This is based on a 1959 book by the original writer. Now, this was a sci-fi kind of back in the late 50s and kind of during the 40s. We had anthology magazines.
These kind of like pulp serials that they.
Thank you.
That
That's
were
what I was looking for.
These pulp what they call them, dime novels, like just like you had the detective stuff back in the 20s and 30s. Back, then in the 40s and 50s, it was all about well, in the late 50s and early 60s, we had the Race to the Moon. So sci-fi really wasn't sci-fi. I mean, you had writers like Isaac Asimov, you had H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, but there wasn't an actual category for sci-fi until really the 50s is where, in the 40s, they had radio serials of Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, not the Buck Rogers we know from the 80s, but a variation of Buck Rogers way back then. I mean, that they really didn't have sci-fi. They didn't call it sci-fi,
So everything was written as and you said Jules Verne is amazing. I mean,
yes.
I loved
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
I mean, you can't go wrong. But the serials that Heinlein wrote were very politically driven. Now, obviously, here's where I get on my soapbox as a social studies teacher.
Speaking of soapboxes, gotta say hi to Vern.
Hey, Vern.
Oakhurst Studios in the house.
Hey, Oakhurst.
Citizens.
Now he's asking how we deep dive into this. Let me explain my process on how I deep dive this. So for me, I deep dive these movies a couple different ways. One of the ways I deep dive a movie is I go into not just the IMDb. I go into who the actors were. Joe, we'll see you later, man. I deep dive a lot of the concepts of what the movie was, what was the ideas and everything else, and I try to look into the directors, the producers, the writers, and get information about them to piece the story together. Now, obviously, Heinlein wrote the original novel, and it was a serial that wasn't really taken at all well, especially because of its political leanings. He felt that it was a very socialist, fascist regime that was going on at the time when he wrote this. Now, mind you, look at the time period. You're looking at the Cold War, and so this is red versus blue,
and that's very reflective in here, like the regime, because the running tagline is was it service guarantees citizenship,
which is very similar to the Star Wars.
Right in the beginning of the film, well, not the early beginning, but after everyone is at boot camp, there's this one guy who wants to be a writer, the atypical war type thing where you get one person who wants to be a writer, and he's asking everyone, well, why did you sign up? And one person said, well, I want to have a family someday, and obviously citizenship helps a long way, getting a license to have a child. So yeah, it's definitely a regime where things are controlled, things are monitored, and like the one person says, oh, I want to go to Harvard, but we can't afford it, but if I do 2 years, well, me being a citizen, that's the service is going to pay for it. Whereas Rico is the opposite side. He got into Harvard, but he doesn't want to go because, well, he signs up for a girl. Atypical.
Now, I'm not gonna go on the whole premise of why I think that this movie is a good view for any historian or anybody that has a kid that's interested in history to watch. I think it's a good watch, especially when you look at movies along the lines of Star Wars, where we see this kind of imperialism and a lot of other things that can bore the heck out of anybody that doesn't have several degrees in history like
No
myself.
worries, collecting with cool.
So I'm not going to go in down that rabbit hole, but I will go down the fact that the Washington Post, when this movie came out, had an editorial come out about the fascist themes, and it tied back to the book. Then I went and looked at the book. Now you can buy the book at Barnes and Noble. It's on the shelf, but it's a reprint of a reprint. So you're not seeing. It's like there's been several edited versions. So there are originals running around in the serial.
That's why a lot of series book collectors they want a first edition, because they're one publisher, let's say another publisher gets the rights, they make a few little changes here and there. It's like there's a term, and I hope I don't offend anyone. There's an old term teacher of mine used to say. He'd say in English, the writing class I was in, he says the problem with telling stories is also what's called Chinese whispers. Because one person, I tell you a story, you tell that story to someone else, you tell that person tells the story to someone else, it keeps getting distorted, and eventually it won't even recognize the original story when everything is said and done.
Would you like to know the teacher version of that? What we call that in the teacher word speak, so we have to avoid all the PC. We call that oral tradition.
Okay.
So through oral tradition, the fact that we speak a story to each other, because we didn't have writing when we first were started. So we would tell our stories to children, and then children would then tell their children. And obviously the tradition changes because until we had a written language. So you're right. Oral tradition is what changes those things. Now, let's go into the budget, because that's what I love talking about when it comes to these things is money. So 110.
Dre loves money.
Oh, I do. I ain't got it, but I love talking about it. $110 million. Obviously, a pretty big budget. And in most of this, again, like Duffman said,
for the time, yes,
it's CGI. Now look, 75 million grosses 817 worldwide because it unseats The Lion King and Jurassic Park. Heavily CGI'd in an animated movie. Now you walk into this movie, what do you get? Almost all CGI, a lot of bad sets, and now some of it's intentional, some of it's tongue in cheek, some of it's not.
Yeah.
But $110 million, and there's not that many big names on this cast that would warrant that kind of paycheck.
No.
But it gets back $11 million worldwide. Now, obviously, we would say that's a failure in a lot of people's eyes because, you made back your budget and only 11 million more. So what do we warrant now? And we've told you guys this in the past. If you guys listen to our stuff on Spotify or watch these videos, you would know a movie here and now says that you have to gross $50 million worldwide to warrant a sequel, and you have to potentially get a sequel, and then 150 million plus guarantees success. That's how we know. Now, obviously, you look at something like Star Wars, which eventually we will do on this channel. We will go into the deep dive of Star Wars, about how Star Wars unseated several things in Jurassic Park, but this movie couldn't even touch that. But it spawned sequels. It spawned an animated series. It spawned a toy line. It spawned a video game.
This movie spawned several Sci-Fi Channel sequels over the years. I personally, think I've only watched one other one. I am going to force myself to watch the others at some point in time. But a little tidbit. They made so much armor, the machine guns and the uniforms. They made so much that the uniforms and gear were recycled on so many other TV shows and movies for decades to come, including a certain series about superheroes who each wear a different color uniform.
Go figure.
This was those uniforms, those exact helmets and uniforms and gear were featured in Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Crazy concept, but it was.
Hey Mirage, I want to tell you something. The fact that you brought that up makes me very happy because I feel like I'm not the only anime nerd in here that reads visual novels. And I think that it's freaking I think it's freaking awesome that Move Love, which I watched the anime Move Love, but I never read the visual novel. But the fact that the visual novel was inspired by this, interesting. So
I love that, Vern. Imagine
imagine
watching A
watching a
Bug's
Bug's Life.
Life as a kid and then watching this.
Oh yeah. It would scare the crap out of me. I mean, I already have arachnophobia, which eventually we will do that one too.
And
Because I was going through
by
my
the way,
drive.
guys, if you are watching this, if you're watching this on YouTube, please check out Mirage. He has an awesome he's an awesome content creator. He's got an amazing Facebook page. He's into anime and especially Gunpla. He hangs out with a good friend of the channel, Colbane Games, on Sunday nights in the Gunpla hangar. Amazing content. He's got an amazing page. You guys should definitely check it out. And by the way, if anyone has the link to that, please share that.
LeBron, I think you're one of our mods, so if you could drop that in there, that'd be awesome. Or if anybody can drop it in there, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, Mirage, if you can drop your own link, please feel free to do so.
Wait, Mirage, you're asking me if he said cultured and I do a hella recommend. Yes, visual novels are great. And I think people don't read enough of them. And I'm glad that the PlayStation Vita was the console to have to actually read a lot of these things if you play them through. So again, this movie, I could talk more about it.
It's
but
not
I don't
Shakespeare.
Really, it's not. It's a good popcorn movie, folks. And if y'all know what I say about a popcorn movie, here's a popcorn movie. You sit down, you eat the popcorn. You got a kid in the background like mine.
Some mindless violence, a little bit of flirting. There's
a little bit of nudity, a little bit, and I know that I got to watch that, but there's a little bit of nudity, some skin.
And and in all honesty, I mean, it's for the time for 1997. It's you get an action movie. The acting's not that great, but it's a fun little action movie. It takes place in parallel universe stars, and it's it's got a bit of I don't want to compare it, but it's kind of like a Pearl Harbor type situation. You got these bugs that are able to hurl these big asteroids at Earth. They strike out and take out Buenos Aires.
I think so. If I remember correctly,
Buenos Aires, and that just kind of reinvigorates all these young people who are already signing up. Now they want to sign up even more. So it's got kind of that kind of Pearl Harbor, and I hate to compare it, but also 9/11 kind of, you get a tragedy and you want to do something to fight back, and we definitely had that in the real world in Pearl Harbor, in Vietnam. I mean, when you see some kind of tragedy, there's some travesty going on, you want, as a young person, you kind of like, well, what can I do to help with it? Sometimes you do help. Sometimes, there's more pain than there is, positivity. But, that's another way to look at Starship Troopers. It kind of reflects that as young people, like, hey, I want to do something, and you sign up without really thinking things through, and now you're in that situation. You just have to make the best of it,
And here's the thing: it's not it's terrible on a lot of different standards because a lot of people judged it in a lot of it took a lot of negative criticism. I mean, when I looked at Rotten Tomatoes, I looked at Metacritic, and I looked at several other things, but the one that stood out and actually gave an explanation to why it got the score it got was CinemaScore. And I thought that was a great place to look at because CinemaScore actually graded this in the middle of the road.
Nice.
It was like, okay. It's not a bad movie, but it's not a great movie. And I kind of agreed with this. It was like for a first of a series of movies and eventually a TV show and everything else.
Well, looking at your text here on the side here, the audience reactions and the information's little facts at the end. Now I see why Michael Ironside was in here. He was in Total Recall.
Yep.
So, Verhoeven, he probably said, hey, I want you to be in this other movie. And he probably said, yeah, sure. It's work.
You know what other movie he was in too, right? The Running Man.
Yes.
He was one of the runners. I keep forgetting that when I rewatched it the other day. I was like, oh my god! But that's another one we got to do. So overall, I mean, is it a pop culture movie that's iconic like Blade Runner? No. Is it one of those that's like everybody I know has said at some point in their life they've seen this movie, either that have partaken in adult beverages or have partaken in some sort of chemical or herbal stimulant, you know, they enjoy it. And I have to admit, it's one of those movies. It's like Jackass. Everybody's seen Jackass and laughs at it, you know.
Mirage is doing his part, of course.
You know, and we appreciate it. So let's move on to the next one.
Would you like to know more? So let's get on to the sequel.
Now I love the tagline. I absolutely love the
Independence Day
tagline.
Resurgence. We had 20 years to prepare, so did they. So
now, obviously, look at we got Roland Emmerich comes back,
and Dean Devlin, who's written a lot of great shows, and you know he's had a part in in writing some movies. But we get Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich. Roland was back to direct. We get Jeff back. We get Bill back. We get Judd Hirsch back. So that, I mean, he was pretty old, you know, in the first one. He's back again.
Now, for those that are listening on the podcast, that are just audio hearing this, when we're going over the names, I'm smirking because I want you guys to laugh. That after he goes from Judd Hirsch, we're gonna mention Liam Hemsworth.
Yes.
And then everybody else after that name is pretty much a relative unknown or has done nothing in the series of. And that's where I could see why this movie it made double its budget and kind of just did okay, but it made it off of its name sake more than it did off anything else.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say some of the acting is, I don't want to say it's there, but
Hemsworth, Liam being his brother.
William Fichtner is a good actor. He's been in a lot of great movies and TV shows.
All right, Travis Pope.
And Fichtner, I have to push him because you know why?
Go ahead, tell me why.
He's from here, Cheektowaga, New York. He's a Western New Yorker. He comes back here several times a year. But I mean, he's been in a lot of great movies. He's been in movies like Crash. I mean, he's been in he even played Shredder basically in the Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or no, he played a minion of Shredder. I mean,
Bayverse. I keep forgetting he tried to mess the turtles up too.
Black Hawk Down. He was in Armageddon, Drive Angry. He's been in a whole host of movies. He's someone who kind of he can play a background character, but he can also play a front runner too. And he was on that show Mom on CBS for a number of years.
Oh, Mom was actually not a bad show. Yeah. I actually enjoyed that show.
But he was even in Finding Steve McQueen.
Now let's actually talk about budgets again. This one, obviously, the budget went over $90 million more money because now we're in 2016, folks.
Yep. So we 165.
And then box office. Now here's where the box office gets tricky. So people were trying to compare this movie and looking at the state of things. And again, when I deep dive a movie, folks, you know how Dre does it. I have to dig and find out what was happening in the world as far as movie-wise. Maybe what the world effect was going on at the time too. So I look at 2016. We were in the bit of a lull financially. We were having a couple of issues financially.
A little bit of a recession, yeah.
A little bit of a recession. But look at what they based it off of here. First thing is, because the movie did not have any support in China, that actually caused its worldwide budget to not get higher.
Part of that could be because Brazil and South Korea both impeached their presidents, so there was a lot of world turmoil at the time. Let's see what else had going on. There was a coup that failed in Turkey.
Yeah, we had major deaths that year for several political leaders around the world. And that affects
a lot of world threats too. There was North Korea was conducting missile and nuclear tests.
So we had the missiles. They were firing missiles from North Korea to Hawaii to test to see if they could get a ballistic missile to the States.
Yeah,
supposedly.
there was stuff going on with the elections. There's a lot of conspiracy that Russia was making interference, and that's also when a certain person was nominated president. We're not political here.
Oh no, we're apologizing to those that listen to the podcast and just want to hear our goofiness. We're only trying to I try to provide you, and this is like again,
So,
this is the historian.
Just kind of setting the tone.
We want you to understand the tone of what's going on and consider that Europe is no longer a market for movies. People don't look at Europe like cons anymore.
No.
They look at China. Why? I'm sorry to say this, a third of the world's population dwells in Asia. And that is a huge market. You have India, China, Japan, Korea. You cannot deny that those three major areas of Asia garner huge amounts of money, tech giants. Everybody goes there.
And also a lot of movies fail commercially, internationally because of that, because there are a lot of standards in that region. A lot of standards where they don't agree with certain kind of tones in a movie that they will rewrite or re-edit. They'll dub the voices so that it sounds like they're saying something else instead. They might change the title of a movie in other countries.
Yeah, they've done that. We've seen that with Captain America.
Yeah.
Or we will see that. Sorry, when we do that, because we haven't done that yet.
Well, yeah. I mean, the new Sam Wilson Captain America movie was going to be called New World Order, and now it's being called something
Brave
else.
Brave New World.
Yes. So, I mean, we unfortunately, the Kyles and Karens do exist, and they are international.
Now, here's something else interesting at the time, which I found funny. When this came out, I didn't realize that Finding Dory, which I absolutely love, came out the same month, earlier in the month. So now you had Finding Dory, which won, I think, the Academy Award that year for Best Animated Film.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the highest grossing movie for June of that year, 2016. So mind you, look at that, what's going on in the world. You got that going on. Yeah, we had a bit of recession. And then this comes out and people are like, you have to remember, we had 20 years, like the tagline said, we had 20 years to prepare. They did. We're all jacked up. Like, I remember when I was like, oh man, we're going to see some really good stuff. And I kind of walked in and it was like, oh, like you tried to ride on the coattails of the success.
It was a shorter movie. It was a shorter movie. It was only an hour, 2 hours, barely 2 hours. And that includes your beginning credits, your end credits. So I mean, on average, a movie might have maybe about 5 or 6 minutes of credits. So it's more like an hour and 14 minutes or 114 minutes, really. But I mean, we had to explain why Will Smith wasn't in there. Okay, we had the little boy who, Will Smith had adopted because it was Vivica A. Fox's kid. And he's the one that is now a pilot, and him and Liam Hemsworth are kind of like two pilots going head to head. It was, but the thing was, the studio was like, you know what, let's do Independence Day. Let's and a lot of studios were trying to bring back stuff. That's kind of, I think, when the nostalgia trend was trying, like they were kind of forcing it. I think that's the beginning of when it was being forced down everybody's throats. But like, hey, Independence Day, if we do a sequel, it's gonna bring people to the theaters. Yeah, they did financially. It was financially a success, but critically, and as a fan, it was a letdown. It was like Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull scale letdown.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think Carlos said it best.
Sharks were jumped. I mean, sharks were jumping over sharks. That's how bad I think it was. If they would have, maybe if they did a little, because I don't know what happened with the studios behind the scenes. Maybe they were, maybe the studio was forcing rewrites on Roland. Maybe they were standing there saying, hey, we want you to do this. We're the ones banking this, so we want you to do this. We've seen it happen with a lot of movies. Sony did that with a lot of the Spider-Man movies over the years. That's just one example. It's sad to think, because a sequel had so much potential. There was
Oh,
so
of
much
course.
potential in there that they could have done so much, but they didn't. You know, I mean, we get Bill Pullman back, so thank God for that. We get Jeff Goldblum back, but were they the same characters that they were before? No, they were more shattered shadows, I would say.
Yeah, like
You know,
I think they
shattered silhouettes
definitely
of who they were.
and they definitely wanted to. They took the shine off of Goldblum and really
Yeah,
wanted Liam Hemsworth to shine. Now, mind you, Red Dawn, the remake of Red Dawn that they did
yeah,
in 20, I think 14. That was Liam Hemsworth. He's with his brother, Chris, and Chris is huge at this point. He's Thor. He's running around with the Avengers. He's already done Dark World has come out already. There's so much he's done in
yeah,
the MCU. Liam Hemsworth is like, what the hell am I doing? He's kind
yeah.
of like that background actor, and they gave him this kind of like to see if he
he
could
he
be like his
hasn't really
brother.
been all that busy since then either. I mean, he
Mm-mm.
did an Expendables movie where he was killed like in the first 20 minutes, first 20 or 25 minutes. He's going to be the new Witcher in season 4 of The Witcher on Netflix. I mean, he's got that notoriety of his brother Chris, but he really hasn't had anything that was truly a commercial success, at least in my opinion. But that's just me. We got T3 popping in the chat.
I mute my mic for once.
Carlos is saying ID4 Resurgence was a huge letdown. Major letdown. He also says, if you're going to do a sequel to a beloved movie, do it a few years later, not 10 to 20 years later after the first film. Agree with that 100%. I know Dre does too. It's like you want to strike while the iron is hot. You want it to be fresh, but you don't want it to be forced. You want it to feel natural. 20 years later, I mean, 20 years later, I mean, there were kids born that probably never saw this movie. It's just it is a letdown. I mean, they tried to do it on the same scale, but they didn't. I'm just going to take a quick look here at what Dre has here. Let me
Sorry
see
about
here.
that. Had to remove the little one because she was trying to
Okay.
grab movies off the top of the PlayStation.
Of course she was.
So I said, go to mommy. If you're gonna do a sequel, do a beloved movie. Yeah, But you know what though? Look at Rocky.
Yeah.
Look at movies like Rocky, where you had Rocky 1, 2, 3, and 4 all come out within about 3 to 4 years of each other. And
True.
then you had Balboa, which came out like
Balboa is something I still love watching.
it's not bad, but it's not good. But at
Well-
least it played up to modern stuff, like
Well,
where they
for
used
me-
Fight Night.
Now, I know we're getting off topic, but for me, Balboa I can watch because what they did was they made a sequel, but they humanized the story. They made it
Oh, yeah,
relatable.
like not getting knocked out. If you get knocked down, you gotta get back up. That's what you gotta do.
No, Balboa, where his wife had died of cancer.
Well, he also had cancer too. Because
Paulie
we find out
was really ill, and you find out like as someone who I'm in my mid 40s now. There are places that don't exist anymore. There are people that I used to say hello to and talk to all the time, and they've passed away. Having less and less around, less and less that make you smile. That I think was a great way to do a sequel, to bring that character back, to kind of update and check in with that character to see how everyone was doing. Independence Day, I mean, we didn't even get a cartoon. They had all those figures. I think they had 1 or 2 video games at the time, but there was so much they could have done. They could have done, if they were smart, they could have done right after the movie. They could have done a comic book about the rebuilding, or were scientists trying to find out where these aliens came from the crashed ships to begin with. I mean, they could have spawned a whole universe, but they didn't. They missed it. They could have grabbed onto the IP and held it and kept it vibrant. I mean, we've had Godzilla cartoons, we've had Godzilla comics. Godzilla is still more prevalent
Well, Godzilla's gonna be that's
Yeah.
Toei. You
Well, I
can't
mean,
touch that.
well, I mean, we big kaiju coming to destroy cities and everything, but they
I
made
mean,
a lore about it and they actually turned him into a hero. I mean, there was so much potential that they could have expanded a universe here,
I'm
but
not
they
gonna disagree
didn't.
with you, but here's where my brain goes for something like this. And I'm loving what you guys are saying in the chat. So I will address it in a second. There is the thing that we've all been saying. Joe said it, Colin said it, Duffman said it, Dave and I both agree with it 100%.
Mhm.
Is that some of the movies that have, and I'm not gonna say all movies, but a good chunk, I would say at least 60% of the movies that are coming out, they're pandering to sequelitis, they're pandering to remake-itis, they're not listening to the level of new. We're not listening to the idea of, wow, like this matters. Like what happened to the fan? And like Mirage says, Rocky 4 was probably one of the best Rocky films outside of Rocky 1. And then you get Balboa, which is a fantastic like send off, and then you get the Creed series, and you're looking at like Creed, and people are like, oh, that's no, it's not a multiverse thing. That's going down
Yeah.
Adonis' story. Now you're going on a whole different path, and that's the story I care about. Like, what happened with Adonis? Like, why is he the way he is? And they
Well,
loosely tied Rocky into it. Now here
yeah.
in Independence, we didn't get that. Like I said, it's like you had this, and Dave said it. I'm not even going to bear to repeat it. It's perfectly. He said it. There were so many missed opportunities. Pac Rim, Pacific Rim. For those of you that did
Mhm.
not watch the Guillermo del Toro, loved anime, and he loved Evangelion. Big robots
Yeah.
fighting big monsters. They made a Pac Rim cartoon. There is a third movie coming out. There is 2 video games. There were toys. It is involved, and Netflix has a 3-season show
Yes.
cartoon series based on the kaiju.
The sequel movie they did was okay, but definitely the first one,
Uprising,
Pacific. Yeah.
yeah, Uprising wasn't good.
Uh,
I saw it, but again, it's you can't. Charlie Hunnam did a great job
oh, he
in
was
this
great.
in the Jaeger. You can't beat that. Like that was it was like that. That's all I'm gonna say. You
Chef's
can't
kiss.
exactly. Then you get now Charlie Day. I love him.
Idris Elba. I mean, yeah,
He-
it was a fantastic cast. And of course, in the sequel, they are dead now because of the dangers of piloting. Oh god, I'm blanking on what they call
the
the
Jaegers,
mechs that the Jaegers.
Jaegers, yeah, the Jaegers. Which I think again, which is very cool. Now I'm gonna actually go back to something Mirage said here. He said we have a local filmmaker, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I feel like him trying to make a multiverse series of films is too much. You don't need to be an MCU just to be successful, and you're right. A
Exactly.
good story is what sells. Now, obviously, are people trying to capitalize on ideas that have been long forgotten? Yes. Here's one I'm going to tell you: the idea of Kong Skull Island. Kong Skull Island, fantastic kaiju movie. Better than the King Kong that we got with Peter Jackson. Now, again, I love Peter Jackson, but a 3.5-hour movie that all I wanted to see was Kong fight T-Rexes. That's all I wanted to see. But then you get Skull Island and you give me everything I want with a story and a reason to not want to go to Skull Island, and then a reason to escape from Skull Island.
Yeah.
And then you say, hey, let's tie in Godzilla. And then you start going down the path of actually doing what they did in Japan, which is, hey, a tried and true trope. If it worked in Japan in 1960, 70, 80, 90 to now, just take the pattern and stick it here, copy and paste. It works.
Sentai. What?
I mean, I'm using Godzilla because how
no. But
successful
I'm just saying.
to everybody in this chat that's watched the Godzilla films, tell me they're bad. I'm gonna be like CM Punk. Tell me when I'm telling lies. Those movies were fantastic. Every single Godzilla movie, except for the Matthew Broderick one.
I mean, as a kid, I grew up watching all the classic Godzilla
Ghidra,
movies every
Gamera,
single weekend.
Godzuki. Come on,
Mecha
folks.
Godzilla. I mean, come on. I mean,
Ghidorah. They all spawned their own multiverse within the multiverse
yes.
of Godzilla, and then
And
Godzilla goes and makes his own.
and to go with the whole like directors don't need to make multiverses. When has Spielberg ever done a multiverse?
1 second. 1 second. We
Okay,
might.
he
We might.
He's gonna tell me like E.T. and
No.
Close Encounters and
No. The joke that okay, remember that joke that me and you had about when we talked about Fast and Furious and
yes.
Jurassic Park having a crossover? So Jurassic Park technically has its own multiverse within it because the actors all meet in the last movie.
Well, it's not really a
And
multiverse.
it kind of brings the story together. Pratt meets Goldblum. Goldblum meets Goldblum and all the original characters meet. The only thing that they didn't give us were the kids.
I'm going to
disagree.
Kids. I'm going to disagree that that's a multiverse because that's just character because they're all part. I mean, the Jurassic World was based on everything that happened with Jurassic Park. So yes. I mean, a multiverse would be like, oh, if No Way Home, that's a multiverse because you're getting different Peters together. Now, if we had different,
now I see how you define it. So that was my fault. I understand. Now I'm going to address something else. Carlos has said here too. Before we go back to multiverse, Carlos says here, just like Avatar: Way of Water, 13 years after the first Avatar and the sequel is boring as F. Just fill in the blanks for you listening to the podcast, folks. $500 million budget and an additional $100 million in marketing. Now, I was at Disney when this movie, the guys all remember, I was at Disney with my family when this movie came out in theaters. My daughter saw it because she was in Florida ahead of us. We didn't opt to go see it, and I didn't watch it till it came out on streaming, a month ago? And I wasn't bored. I just felt like it was, it took too long. Carlos said it best. There's a sweet spot for sequels. In the 80s, the sweet spot was 3 years. You never went longer than 3 years between a sequel, at most 5. And that was depending on a project that the actor or actress had. Aliens 3. Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer. Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. Notice the timelines for those movies. There's not a lot. So he's right. When you do 20 years, 13 years, you're just, it's like you're stretched. And then it's like, who are you trying to get? The
very
nostalgia?
few films can do that.
Like, could you do that with Terminator?
Do that.
Now, Terminator's done it, and Terminator hasn't been successful.
Well, because they keep trying to change some of the rules in some of the situations. Like, okay,
because time travel.
Terminator 1 and 2, great. Terminator 3, not so much, because you started to have different people who were doing it. You didn't have Cameron involved with it anymore.
Oh, no. I forgot who the director was.
No, I'm talking about even writing. Because Cameron wrote, he was the one that, I think he wrote and directed Aliens. He wrote Alien. The same thing with like Terminator and stuff. I mean, when he was involved, it was fantastic. I don't know what's happened to him since then.
Avatar's his. And Avatar, the story, like the lore behind the Na'vi and Pandora. If you go to Disney,
I had no interest to see the sequel.
See, I'm going to tell you, I didn't have any interest in the sequel, but when I was at Disney with the family and getting to walk around Pandora, and then you're immersed into it, it does draw you in. But that's the stuff that I like. I like lore. But 13 years, man.
Yeah, I mean, you can't wait too long because, I mean, like I said, 20 years, you had people who could have been born in 1996 And when this movie came out, was 20 years old, and they might not have even seen that movie ever.
Look at the market for kids. Who half the actors? There was a couple of actors that had passed away, like Robert Loggia, and
Yeah.
I know like Mary McDonald? She had moved on. She's done more. She's done cop dramas and everything else. So she was not trying to touch this with anything.
Well, she did Battlestar Galactica. So I mean,
Well,
she was good.
I mean, she's famous for Battlestar Galactica, but think about that. After that, she obviously she came out as she came out into the public eye that she was, LGBTQ friendly because she came out as a lesbian, and that changed her. That could have been a reason why she didn't want to do this movie. Who knows? I don't know. But you see, again, the 7-year gap between Terminator 1, Terminator 2. But Schwarzenegger is such a hot commodity,
Well, yeah, he was. I mean, Schwarzenegger was the big thing because, like, I mean, after doing Terminator, I mean, like, he did stuff like Hercules in New York.
Oh God.
But then he did Conan, he did Terminator, and like he had a lot of inputs into how the Terminator moved and acted, and he worked with James, and that just it's one of the few times like, okay, this is just kind of a killer monster type movie, but the actor playing that monster had inputs into it, and it kind of set the tone for a lot of things. It was a bit of a precedent, and then of course we get Terminator 2 was just, I mean, it's lightning in a bottle striking twice. That's what I think Terminator 2 was, because yes, she brought Linda Hamilton in. She was she was a completely different character. Basically, she was strong. She was planned out. She knew what she was getting ready to fight against. And even Arnold played a completely different character in that movie. They both played different characters than who they were in the first movies, but it was still a success. They were still able to find lightning in a bottle there.
I love that term,
sadly, that just doesn't happen anymore.
And you're right. Like, it's a lot of it now, and I mentioned it here because of several articles. And Carlos, you just said it. You took the words out of my mouth. There's no more need for sequels. When was the last time we've seen? You know how many good original ideas slip through the cracks and are good movies, but people don't watch them because they're either on streaming.
Hot take here.
Go ahead.
The Witch Hunter. I would have loved to have seen that adapted into more movies.
That needed lore.
Or even a TV show.
I agree. It should have been a TV show. Like, I would have loved that, like the Lord of the Rings. How they did Lord of the Rings. Like, give me a show like that. I would have totally been into it.
The Witch Hunter with Vin Diesel, and I actually liked him in it.
Rose Byrne.
Yeah. I mean, he was not playing his typical like Xander Cage from Triple X or Vin Toretto, all about family. He wasn't playing. He was playing a different kind of character, and I thought it was natural, and I thought it suited him. I would have loved to have seen more, but for whatever reason, it just didn't catch on. Maybe they didn't do enough marketing, or I thought Elijah Wood was a waste in that movie. Loved Michael Caine in it, but I mean, that's the thing. Like, you get studios who are like, oh, maybe they had a contract with certain people, so like, well, we need to, he signed up for this many movies, so let's throw him in this movie, and it doesn't jive well enough, or maybe they don't put enough. It's like you said, I don't think that there shouldn't be sequels. I think they should be very selective about sequels.
Let me ask you this. The Batman, which obviously came out of the height of the pandemic.
Yes.
Probably one of the
better. It was better than I thought it was going to be. I was that person who was like, oh, great. We got the sparkly vampire who's going to play Batman.
And he killed it. He did a great job.
Let's clarify, at least in my personal opinion. Pattinson killed it as playing a year one Batman. He did not kill it as playing Bruce Wayne.
Well, no. That's what I was trying. I am agreeing with you. I love Matt Reeves, the director.
Yes.
I love his style.
His vision, I thought, was great.
Well. He did very well. And I think that's a movie that we got a ton of marketing for. In at the height of the pandemic, let's be real, folks. You
The
you
Lego
weren't going
sets
out
are
your
still
house.
selling. The merch is still out there and does well.
I mean,
I
that
just didn't.
figure still sells for retail price, folks. It doesn't. It's not a clearance McFarlane figure. That's a retail figure. You go to any online retailer, they're still selling
Well,
it for
I
$24.99.
have judgments about the McFarlane figure, but that's just me.
Well, I do too, because there
We're
was like
we're
what, four
we're we're,
versions of him.
we're not going to get into that though.
That's a topic for another time. But the thing I'm mentioning this for, and for you guys that are listening again, and for watching, this is what we a story, the director's vision. I can blame a director, and I will blame a director. I'll blame the actors,
I blame the
and
studios half the time.
I'll blame the studio, Warner Brothers, for certain movies. And I'm gonna use an example from when Carlos was talking with Raphael, when they mentioned the Flash.
Yes.
Andy did a great job on it, and he did a great job on it Chapter 2. Do I say that movie was plagued with the rewrites? Like everything you guys said on Friday, yes, you guys were correct. But was it a great movie? No, it was not. It was a crap movie, and it was plot hole ridden, no direction. Again, who do I blame? Do I blame the director? I can, because I've seen his previous work. Would I give him another chance? Yes. But did a franchise get tanked because we already were seeing another franchise rise up from its ashes? Because technically, Blue Beetle is going to be the first of the non-Snyderverse heroes, even though we're mentioning the Snyderverse heroes, which doesn't make sense.
Let me throw this out there, and this I think you'll agree with. A director is not going to get a home run every single time. I'm going to say one name: Taika Waititi. Okay.
I mean, you're going current. I wouldn't even go with him. I would have gone with like
Well, no, I mean he's done some really good movies. Okay, he's done some very fun, great, enjoyable movies that you can watch over and over again. But guess what? Thor: Love and Thunder is not one of them. You know, not everyone is going to get a home run every single time, but also, at least my personal experience from what I've seen, the studio step in. Now, let's say I'm going to make a prop, and someone wants me to make a prop that I was talking about I'm going to make. Okay, now I'm going to ask them. Okay, well, or like, you and I, Dre, when we were starting this, when we were starting this podcast, okay, you said you wanted a logo. Okay, you said you wanted a certain kind of logo. I kept asking you, so, okay, well, what are we looking for? What are we looking to achieve? Now, I went to an artist, and they asked a few questions, and I gave the information back. I wasn't sitting there every single time like, hey, I need an update today. I need an update this hour. No, I wasn't looking over their damn shoulder. We gave them ideas when they had questions. They came to us, and we got our logo. The studios don't do that. They are sitting there. They're looking over the directors and the writers and the producers' shoulders. They're constantly second guessing things like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. When the money is telling you to do that, you're kind of being held over, because if you don't, that studio might not ever hire you again. So it's kind of a double-edged sword right there. I mean, I've seen that with the Spider-Man movies, the Toby and the Andrew movies. Let's be honest. We see that not just there. We see that with DC. I mean, DC is such a friggin' mess that we're not even going to get into that. Okay. I mean, sometimes, like, okay, same director. What's her name? That Patty Jenkins, who directed Wonder Woman, and she directed 84 as well, if I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, she did.
Okay. 84 tanked. It was a mess.
84 tanked for several reasons. Let's look at it also. It came out the height of the pandemic. It was another pandemic movie.
That's one thing. But take that aside, watching that movie, should that have been a sequel to Wonder Woman?
No, it wasn't I don't think it was a worthy sequel, because Gal Gadot, she's a great actress.
Yeah. she did the best job she could with the material she was given, the writing and the directing. But unfortunately, I think the studios got involved and it just fell apart. And I think that's part of the issue. I mean, there used to be years ago, studios would say, okay, here's the writer, you're the director, go ahead and make the movie within this time frame. If you start to fall behind, then that's when we start sending our minions down there to keep an eye on things and, you know, make sure everything is going according to the plan you presented to us, because you're doing this job for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it used to be that way, but unfortunately, that's not the way anymore. There's all this micromanaging. We don't just see it in our daily jobs. We see it with the movie studios. I mean, look at the streaming services. They're pulling stuff right now.
Well, Disney, and that's the big problem with Disney.
Not
And that's
Disney,
a video.
Netflix, Hulu. I mean, we're seeing it all across the gambit right now.
Yeah, that's a video that I think if you guys are interested in us seeing us actually talk about that, comment in the chat now, and
let us know in the comment section below,
because it's a very big topic right now.
You can hit us up on Instagram and Twitter, and you can also message us all on the community tab as well. You can always message us in many different ways, and of course, the Outer Dimensions podcast at gmail.com is our email address. So you guys have suggestions or something you want to see or something you want us to discuss or argue about, then
I mean, honestly, this isn't an argument for Dave and I, because we'll tell you flat out, like, a lot of what I had this discussion with my wife, because Strange Worlds that came out, not the Star Trek show, but the animated TV series, the animated movie that came out on Disney that went straight to streaming, did not come out to theaters. Great movie, loved it, highly touted for representation across the spectrum. You know, you had handy capable people, you had a child that was dabbling into their sexuality, trying to figure out where they fit. You had a biracial couple. You had a lot of tropes that Disney has never really mashed them all together. And I thought it was very well done. And especially a trope on something huge like the world not being what we perceive the world to be. I was like, a great movie. Well, now you can't watch it on streaming. You can buy it on Blu-ray.
Another example of that is kind of Eternals. They flipped the script. They flipped the script on a lot of those characters. They're pushing agendas down people's throats. Carlos put, Blue Beetle is a cop-out because the Flash bombs and they need a win, so they don't tie it into the DC EU, the DC Comics expanded universe.
He's right about that. I have to admit, he's right.
I honestly don't know. I don't know what to really expect with Blue Beetle. My only hope is that Blue Beetle could be possibly the Foundation, because I'm going to throw this out there, and this might be a hot take with a lot of people. Some people might say, is Blue Beetle a strong enough character to build a universe on?
Yes.
I mean,
and I'm biased. I'm biased.
You say yes. I know a little bit about Blue Beetle through, Justice League Unlimited, Young Justice, and some of the content that I've seen over the years. Okay. But I'm going to throw this out there. How many people thought that a Robert Downey Jr. as a superhero movie would expand and turn into the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
But again, Robert Downey.
It could be lightning in a bottle. Okay.
And I think it's going to be
it could be lightning in a bottle. And I haven't seen The Flash yet. Okay. Don't judge me, people. Don't judge me. I'll judge you.
Don't point fingers, because guess what? There's several pointing back.
Listen, you point a finger, I got a finger. I can point right here. No, okay.
He's not trying to say you're number one, even though you guys are. We love you, fans.
Okay. I will say this. For all we know, okay, like I know with the Flash, okay, we get Keaton appearing in it. You get Supergirl, and all of that is being written off right now, pretty much because of how much the Flash is bombing. But if Blue Beetle succeeds, James Gunn could possibly take Blue Beetle as a potential foundation builder to rebuild the DC universe. Maybe we don't have to wait 10 years for a new universe to be built. Maybe it could be done in 5. And if anyone can do it, I have faith in James Gunn.
I do. Peacemaker. I mean, your most successful IP.
is killer. I can't wait for season 2. When season 2 does pop out, I will be re-upping I will be signing back up for HBO Max or
Max
or Maxwell
Skinamax
Coffee House,
or
whatever you want to
whatever.
call it, whatever it's going to be called by then.
But I do have a hot take for Blue Beetle, and I want to address some of the things in the chat
Bring
too.
it.
So my hot take for Blue Beetle is the same as you. And again, I scream this to the heavens. I love representation, and I say this as a guy who is multiracial. We need representation in movies. Kids these days will not identify with something if they don't feel a personal connection to it. That's where you're losing it, not just in story.
I'm going to say this.
This is coming from a guy who teaches.
We've had sprinkles of representation over years. Okay?
Yes, but now we're starting to see it as, like Carlos said, Strange World failed because nobody wanted to address that the son was possibly was gay and LGBTQ plus, and that becomes a very touchy area. Because a cartoon should never touch that.
Well,
you know,
I'm going to say this. As far as that goes, as far as representation goes, it shouldn't be a matter of having. I'm going to say this. It maybe shouldn't necessarily be a matter of representation, but it should be a matter of people. Majority of people out there need to wake the hell up and realize that this is not 1960. This is not 1970. Things are very different. I'm 44. I'm 44 going on 45 in October. Okay. I have had friends for decades who are gay and homosexual. I don't look at them as gay or homosexual.
It's Bob. It's Fred.
It's this buddy who, he happens to like guys. This person happens to like both men and women. That doesn't change who they are. They're still the same people that I love and I go to and I talk to. And then if I'm in a bad situation, they're there to help me out. Okay. I have a friend who is going through a situation right now where one of his children has decided to become gender neutral. Okay. And, it takes getting used to, because now, they have to use the gender neutral term of they, when they were used to saying he or she in some situations. That takes getting used to. And even I was talking to someone and I was kind of found myself frozen, like, I wanted to say kid and I said child, and it didn't sound natural when I said child. To kind of find, I was almost like I was struggling to find the right gender neutral way to say it so it doesn't sound funny or out of place at times, And that's the thing. I mean, representation can come in many different forms. As a kid, I lifelong asthmatic here. One of my favorite movies, it wasn't the greatest movie of all time, but one of my favorite movies when I was a teenager was Sidekicks. Okay, with Jonathan Brandis,
Chuck Norris.
Okay, Mako. Right? Okay. Do you know why I love this movie? Jonathan Brandis was this asthmatic kid that had no athletic skill or anything, and he is being taught martial arts, and it gets to the point where his breathing, his asthma suddenly is under control to the point where he doesn't even need his inhaler anymore. I'm like, that was like a superhero movie to me. I'm like, an asthmatic can do martial arts, an asthmatic can do something athletic. I mean, that filled me with so much esteem. Like, I was like, wait a minute, like, yeah, it was a movie, but it kind of motivated me, kind of inspired me. That, in a way, is a form of representation.
Wait, you know what movie represents you, me, and Carlos?
Three Amigos?
No. Three Ninjas, baby.
Dream Team. What?
Rocky loves Emily. No, I'm not trying to be funny and loosen things up, but I agree with Dave. It's like,
yeah,
think of when Peter Parker gets bitten by the spider and he talks to, he's talking to Happy, and Happy's sitting there and he's saying, why don't you why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? He's like, the reason I can't do it is because I didn't do it before.
He says it to Tony.
To Tony. What would change if I did it now?
Because I couldn't do it before, so I shouldn't be doing it now.
And that's huge. When you think about that, that is such a mindset that kids these days really take into their my daughter. You know, I'm gonna speak about my daughter Lana. Love her to death. This girl drew some pictures. I took some pictures and I posted it to Instagram to show it off because I love it. And she's working on a picture for me now of Spider-Man, so I'm looking very forward to getting it. But she says, I can't draw this because I can't. And I said, stop saying you can't. Say you can learn. Because when you put in your brain the break in your head that I can't do it, you're going to automatically slam on the brake and not try it. And I told her, I said, don't limit yourself.
The greatest piece of advice I've ever been given in my life was not by a family member, was by an employer. Okay. My first job, I worked at a roller skating rink. And there was this is like my freshman year in college. And there was this one girl that I really liked. I just didn't think she would talk to me or anything. And my boss Brian, he could tell that something was bothering me. He said, "Hey, what's wrong?" And I told him, I said, "Well, how do I know? Like, I don't, there's this girl, but I don't think I'm good enough for her." He says, "How do you know? How do you know you're not good enough for her?"
Very well said.
And it's like we think like, oh well, what if this happens? Well, what if that doesn't happen? What if something else happens? When we're always our worst critics, but sometimes, that the two worst words are what if. What if I'm not good enough? Well, what if I'm more than good enough? And that stood, now that, mind you, that was like 97, 98, and that stuck with me all throughout the rest of my life, that you never know, and that's the great thing about some of these movies is they can open up so much. Now, personally, my feel on most networks and studios, they don't need to shove inclusion down our throat.
It's already there.
They need to just write it in natural ways. One way I'm going to say is this. Okay, like there are some people who I no longer speak to be perfectly honest. They hated Miss Marvel, the Disney series. They hated it.
That was a good series.
I loved it because it was natural. Like, you weren't trying to shove down any kind of Indian or Middle Eastern families. You weren't trying to shove them down my throat. It was a natural family. And everything that she was exploring was very natural. If something is natural, and if they write it the right way, if they write it in a natural way, and not like, oh, this person's going to be, this person's,
Kamala Khan,
gender neutral. This person has a special need of some kind. Maybe this person is this or that and this. When you're writing them, just to include a group in there, you're going to fail. When you're shoving things down my throat, okay? If I go to a restaurant and I want a burger, but all that they're serving is soup, well, I'm not going to eat there. I don't want soup. I want a burger. I want some onion rings. I want a milkshake, When you are forcing people to, have A, B, C, and D, and they have that all the time, they're not going to know anything good when they come across it. And I think that's another thing that happens with a lot of movies is we see A, B, C, and D. Like we see nothing against these movies, but we see John Wick. We see Fast and Furious. We see, yet again, another Mission Impossible coming through the pipeline, whether it's good or not. We're seeing all this stuff being repeated, but we're missing out on stuff that could be world breaking. Like some movies that I personally love, but they weren't necessarily major blockbusters. Bicentennial Man, What Dreams May Come. Okay,
UGLY. You ain't got no alibi. You ugly.
Bicentennial Man.
No, I just think of whenever I think of that movie, I remember somebody had made a meme and they posted that song to Robin Williams doing that. That's why I was laughing.
But I mean, those are movies. They weren't necessarily major blockbusters, but those are movies that, like, it really, to me, those are
what
movies
about 1
that
Hour Photo?
that
great
was a bit
film.
creepy. It was
It
dark.
was, but it was
Dark.
great though. It's like it spotlighted a lot of
And I'm not just pointing those out because they were both Robin Williams movies, but they were just very powerful movies that stuck with me. You know, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think we need more. Like, I'm not saying we need overly epic emotional movies, but I just think we need some more originality.
We haven't had that one. We haven't had that one yet. We haven't. I think Endgame was that one for like
Marvel?
the year for Marvel. Like,
okay,
and everybody has said like you can never. You ever since Endgame, everything's been like this. Now wait. Lightyear, I think for Pixar, Disney Pixar, Lightyear to me as a fan of Buzz Lightyear, who's my favorite Toy Story character, being voiced by the voice of Captain Freaking America. I loved it, and there were so many great elements to the movie. It was Rory. It has memories, positive tied to it. It was Rory's first movie we took her to as a family. It was the first family movie we went to. There's so many positive things that people like, for no better way of saying it, they shit on it because they don't like one aspect of the movie or they don't like Tim Allen. No offense. Tim Allen wasn't going to touch this movie with a 10-foot pole because of his past drug addiction and all his political ideations. Yes, folks, I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, these actors did not take the role. So what do you get? You get people that are relevant to today to do the things again. People will gravitate to what they recognize.
Listen, Star Trek is a good example. Chris Pine as Captain Kirk, did we think he would do a great job?
Excellent.
Zachary Quinto as Spock, Zoe Saldana as Uhura. Did we Simon Pegg as Scotty? Did we think that I mean,
he's great. He kills it. I love him.
I mean, did we think like, oh my God, they're rebooting Star Trek? What is going on here? But they did an amazing job. Okay, that's just one example I'm throwing out there. That yes, I mean you're going to have to update things over time. And really, if we want to look at Tim Allen did prison time for cocaine.
Now we're not saying all actors are perfect because
no,
we all know every actor.
And everyone is. Majors. I mean, hey, and great news for Jonathan Majors. Apparently, the person who is accusing him was arrested on various other charges.
Yep.
So it looks like that he, it's still an ugly situation, mind you, but this definitely paints a brighter future for King Dynasty and Marvel movies moving forward, at least with the original slate.
The mouse sprinkled his dust, and now he is the thing.
Hey, listen, I'm not going to question the mouse and its empirical guidance right now.
Listen, he got the gauntlet, and the mouse was like, "Wait, oh boy, I gotta save King."
The mouse is a Q, in case you didn't know.
Yeah. So
okay.
So think about that, folks.
The mouse continuum. I mean, the Q continuum. But no, I mean, it's no one is perfect. I mean, look at RDJ, Robert Downey Jr. He was part of the Brat Pack back in the 80s, hooking up all kinds of parties. He had his share of some dark times, prison, jail, coke.
And what did he do?
And he's done some movies that would not have been made right now. Tropic Thunder. I'm just saying.
Love Tropic Thunder.
Okay. Hilarious movie, but some of the situations in there would not fly today. And I'm sure
do you guys want us to review that? I'm curious. Chat, do you want us to review Tropic Thunder? Like a deep dive into Tropic Thunder and why it should be remade? Or not even remade, a sequel should be made now?
Oh, there's talk of a sequel, actually.
Yes, I know, because he's also, they're trying to pen him for other projects.
Yeah.
Don't make an Iron Man 4. You know what I want? I want a Sherlock 3. Give me Sherlock 3, damn it.
Sherlock 3 would be great, but I spoke to someone earlier today about the only way I could see Tony Stark coming back is as an AI. His daughter is a teenager. She's building her own suit. She finds a bunch of videos of him, and she creates an AI that's her father, maybe in voice only, kind of like Jarvis was for Tony.
Or wait, I can
see that.
Or Secret Invasion. There was a Skrull, and then
he died. It was a Skrull who died.
That died.
Please don't. Please,
no. That we see him come back as the Skrull would take his form, because they are looking for DNA. But I'm not going to get into that. That's
Hey,
TV. We don't really touch TV on this channel.
hey, what if it was an LMD that actually died? That's all I'm saying. Uh,
Hey, look at that. That's another thing, folks. That's we oof, oof. But
Agents of
let's
Shield is canon. So shut the hell up, people. No,
oh God, I know. But let's
no,
just say
no.
this. At the end of the day, there's a lot of things that people view in a negative light when it comes to the actors, the actresses, or and things. And we as fans, I think we have a lot more invested because nowadays information's readily at our
Also, as
fingertips.
fans, I don't think we look at the facts though. We see a headline, we jump on the headline. Oh, I heard this. You don't read the entire article, and you're not gathering all the facts, or the person presenting those articles aren't presenting all the facts, and we don't have all the information, and we're making judgments. Like a
Oh
lot
no,
of
and
people were making judgments on majors.
yeah,
When
before all the
when
information started
when I
coming out
saw it
now.
happen, I said, okay, this is definitely not going to be good for him, but I hope that it was false. I hope that the situation wasn't true, and that because he killed it in Loki. He was awesome in Loki. I actually liked him. I loved him
Amazing.
in Quantumania. I know that's a hot take. I enjoyed Quantumania. It was
I
a
did
different
too.
kind of Ant-Man. I was talking to one of my coworkers today, and I said it was a different kind of Ant-Man because it was nonstop action, and Paul Rudd was not making a joke every 5 minutes.
Oh no, he was complete dad mode. He went in
And
dad
I
mode, and
love
as
that.
a dad,
You need evolving. I mean,
I
it
needed
wasn't
that.
it wasn't the atypical Ant-Man movie, and I think that pissed a lot of people off. We didn't get Luis doing the whole playback of, hey, this happened and this happened and this happened, and
But I
we
did like the inner monologue. I
yes,
did like that he had the inner monologue that gave us like
yes,
insight into where we're going to possibly see if they do this
yeah,
right War World with the whole
yes.
breaking apart of the multiverse.
But
I love that.
but this movie, I enjoyed that movie tremendously. But that's the thing. Most people, hey, like, oh, you want a burger? Here's a burger. It's made a, like, well, this isn't exactly what I wanted, but wow, after a while, you're like, wow, that really was a really great burger. I mean, sometimes you get served something a little bit different. It takes a couple bites for you to like really get the flavor, really get the taste of it, and like, oh wow. And I think that's what's missing with a lot of people. They see something different, they're like, well, I don't like this. How do you know you don't like it unless you try it?
Man, that's a parent thing right there. I say that all
Okay.
the time.
I don't have children. Well, I have cats, so I'm
Now
cat
you're
daddy.
listen, you're a pet parent. That's still being a parent. You take care of another life form.
But I mean, that's where I stand on that. So
Again, folks, for those of you that listen, and I know that some people are like, "Oh my God, this podcast went we didn't go political." We're just telling you guys
no,
these are things that bring up a lot of.
we
It's
walked
a
on the edge.
they're very very prevalent topics right now in the realm of these movies, and especially as we try to review things that are closer to current time, we're gonna have a lot of discussions about these sorts of topics because they're affecting us. Dave and I have talked about this behind the scenes several
Mhm.
times. That when you look at the writer's strike that happened literally 20 years ago, how it
It's back
affected
again.
television and movies, it's back again. And that strike lasted a year. And the damage it did to Hollywood was rippled out. It destroyed a whole the concept of superhero TV shows were starting to come out. Heroes died before it ever could really get out the gates because of that whole strike. And other shows that fell by the wayside because they
Dre,
just were pumping out
Dre wants
content.
Heroes brought back. By the way, he
I
wants it
do.
rebooted
I do.
proper.
I've 100% said that. I don't like the crap reboot we got a couple years ago. I thought it was shit. You give me the freaking show I deserve. Give me where I want to
He
see all
wants
the
Siler
characters.
back.
I want Siler. I want freaking I want.
Hayden
Ooh.
Panettiere.
Oh, she's yes. Give her, bring her. My wife's like the same height as her, so it's perfect. That's a win-win for me. I'm just saying, give me something that's
TMI.
good. And yeah, folks, I know. Hey, you get that. But at the end of the day, I want to see. He's making fun of me now, but I'm gonna say it like this: bring back don't give me give me the level playing field, but make it level for everything. Don't just look at the movies and say, oh, because there's gay representation or this representation. People already were saying that when Oppenheimer comes out on the 21st, that the big thing in the theaters is going to be who's going to see Oppenheimer and who's going to see Barbie. And I said, I will go see Barbie, but my daughter Lana's like, I kind of want to go see it. I'm like, I'll go see Oppenheimer because that's more for me. But I understand that there are people that are going to see both movies with a discerning eye, and they're going to love them both or they're going to hate them both. Whatever. They're entitled to their opinion.
You know what movie I'm going to watch?
Tell me. I'm waiting.
Whatever I find on Amazon Prime or Netflix.
Speaking of which, when are we getting The Boys? I'm not gonna even. That's divergent. We're going way off there. The Boys need to come back for another season. I'm itching for that.
Well, yeah. Well, The Boys is coming back, and of course, you also got
an Invincible season 3.
Yep.
I need that because. But folks, again, we went off on our tangent. That's what you guys expect from us. But I thank you guys for listening to it. I really the new rig is. I love this new rig. I love the setup. It's great. For those of you that are not
Dre
watching,
went Apple on us, folks.
Yeah, I went complete. Like I've got the pods, the iMac, and I have an iPod.
He's got a nice camera coming soon.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That's gonna be awesome to get to play with that camera and see how that one changes the perspective. Because I know some people are like looking behind me and they're like, "Oh my God, is the room still a mess?" Temporarily.
Hey, so my room is still a mess too.
I know, and I still have stuff that I haven't even unboxed. I got a box that's going to Mercari, so don't hate, appreciate, folks. But again, if there's any topics you guys are really looking forward to, like Dave said, please feel free to go to any of our socials. We have our Twitter, our IG, our email. We have our personal IGs, but you could find us there. Yep. Now,
the Outer Dimensions Podcast on Instagram, and also the Outer Dimensions Podcast at gmail.com. And Dre, our Twitter?
Our Twitter is the Outer Dimensions Pod. They didn't let me put a whole bunch out, but it's the Outer Dimensions Pod. And I've been subscribing to a lot of cool, following a lot of cool comic book creators and a lot of cool movie people on there. There's a lot of fun stuff. Like Twitter is kind of weird, but it's so good.
Don't forget, we are on Spotify for our previous episodes. We're going to be doing another batch. We have 5 episodes up right now. And this was episode 7. So when we hit episode 10, we'll be dropping the next 5 batch. But
so if you miss out, Dave is the one that's going to be putting them up. And like we said, if we get that, you're going to be in for it because, folks, it's going to be fun. And, oh, my God, Dave, please roll this in because this is whew.
Next week, we are doing the Marvel Cinematic Universe beta. That is Marvel Cinematic Universe before it was the MCU. We're talking old school, okay? What do we mean by that? We are going to be discussing classic Marvel movies before there was an MCU. Back in the 80s and 90s, we had Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher. Yes, the Russian boxer from Rocky IV was actually the Punisher, Frank Castle. We also had I want to say Matt Salinger as Captain America. That came out in 1990. And yes, don't hassle the Hoff because he was actually Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
action hero.
In 1992. Well, it says 92 up here, but you also have 90.
Oh, I forgot to.
So that might be a typo.
I'll fix that on the next. Before the next episode, I'll have that.
So those are going to be the 3 movies we're talking next week, guys. So it's it's the early days of Marvel when Marvel was still trying to get a franchise going on. There was, of course, the Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk show in movies that were a thing. So there was a lot of stuff that we could still explore. The Spider-Man TV movies from the 70s. There's a lot of stuff.
Dave, I forgot to add this too. There was a movie I came across in my research that people might be interested in us talking about. Swamp Thing, we all know, was a DC property. And why am I mentioning Swamp Thing as a DC property? Because there was 2 movies, and then we had the TV show, the James Wan TV show, which is freaking fantastic. But for those of you that loved Werewolf by Night, there was a movie for Man-Thing in 2005 I did not know this ever existed. It's an MCU movie, and when I found it, it has the scroll, just like a typical Marvel movie. It
Okay.
is a little known gem, and for those of you that are interested, it's not canon to the MCU in any way, shape, or form, but some people have been talking about it that it might be canon to Werewolf at Night, which Werewolf at Night is canon to the MCU.
Well,
So
maybe it's canon to the multiverse of madness. We'll just say that.
yes, so if you guys are interested in us reviewing that movie, please drop that in there. I want to watch it, and give me a reason to watch it. That's what I always love when you guys when we mention these movies, because Dave and I want reasons to watch bad movies sometimes, because sometimes you just don't want to watch a good movie. You just want to sit and laugh at how bad something is. So I'm just dropping that little nugget there. But I want, before we even get going, Dave, please tell everybody the good news of where you're going to be at on Friday. Because
So let me pull that up very quickly here. So
folks, he's doing awesome. Big things, big things.
So let me just pull this up so you guys can see. A friend of my channel, Dave's Dimension, there is a channel known as Tea and Telly with Maria. It's basically a talk show format. She's had guests from so many different channels on there before. I've been on her channel before. She has invited me back to discuss all things Ghostbusters. So this Friday, all you have to do is look up Tea and Telly on YouTube and go ahead and subscribe to her channel. She's actually going to have me on there. We're going to be talking all things Ghostbusters. As the promo shows me in my Ghostbuster gear. And it also says, I'll cross streams with Dave this Friday as we cover some of these hot topics. What's new with Ghostbusters, because there's a lot new with Ghostbusters and the Ghostbusters movie Firehouse and everything going on with the community. What's Dave up to, because it's been a while since I spoke with them, probably about just over a little more than a year. She helped me promote the Ride for Roswell last summer.
Nice.
Maybe some paranormal talk, tips on how to remove ectoplasm stains from cotton. Honestly, it doesn't stain, so that's a good news. And also help explain to your child or dog why you named them Egon. So come join us. We're ready to believe you. So it's going to be a very fun hangout stream. And again, you just have to look up Tea Time with Maria. I'm actually going to see if I can pull up her link right now. Got that very fast. Yeah, it's probably going to be like maybe an hour, maybe a little over an hour, just kind of like talking about Ghostbusters, things going on in the community. I know there's a lot of people in the YouTube community who are actually getting ready to gear up this October for New York City Comic Con. Mr. Hollywood himself, Hey Archer of Nerd Affiliated, him and also Ramblin' Nerd, they are going to be hitting up the Comic Con this year.
And he got the Proton Pack. If you guys haven't watched, check out Hey Archer's video.
And I'm being used as a as a special consult with Ramblin' Nerd.
Paul Heyman now? Is he Roman Reigns and you're going to be Paul Heyman? You're going to carry the belts around? But you can carry his Proton Pack? That's a wrestling reference for those of you that don't know.
I do have a belt. It's not a Ghostbusters belt, but I do have a trivia belt. So who knows? Maybe.
Oh. But that's what he's got going on Friday. And I wanted to shout him out because it's a big deal, folks.
So if you guys want to stay up to date on that, you can follow my channel. But this is going to be live on Maria's channel, and I'm going to put her YouTube link in the chat below. If you guys need more information, you can always message me directly at Dave's Dimension, Dave's_Dimension on Instagram. So we just threw the chat in there. There's her link right there in the bottom of the chat. You can just look her up as Maria with Tea and Telly on YouTube, and it's going to be a fun, crazy stream. She covers everything from sci-fi with the Orville. She does hangouts with so many different great authors and creators out there. It's just going to be a fun hangout stream. And if you love Ghostbusters, come stop down. I'm going to be talking about some of the things going on behind the scenes with Ghostbusters, because Ghostbusters has been filming in both New York and in London. And I'm also Well, there's a lot of talk that the movie's not going to be coming out this December, like a lot of people believe it's going to be. So
Yeah, they said Ernie Hudson himself made a comment about it today, saying that he
that
thinks it's going to be.
it could be next spring, or
Yeah,
some people I know are hoping, fingers crossed, for June of next year, because that would be the official 40th anniversary since Ghostbusters 1 came out. So
he's pushing for it. I know Ernie Hudson's really doing a lot of, like, I'm not that big into the Ghostbusters community, but because of Dave.
Personally, I don't necessarily want that to happen for multiple reasons. My friend, the franchise I'm a part of, we do a fundraiser every year, roughly around the weekend of Ghostbusters Day weekend. So if that movie comes out that weekend, then I know Sony's going to be doing a lot of big stuff. We'll have to move our event to another day. And the weekend after, I can't do anything because I have to be in Ohio for my niece's graduation. So I might miss out on
he's a
a
busy
pretty big
man.
event. So, you know, we gonna see. Who knows? It might still come out this December.
Well,
But
only we'll know as the information probably by Comic-Con
yep.
leaks out, because
Well,
that's the rumors.
Well, see, that's the thing. The last time when Ghostbusters Afterlife came out, they treated the audience to seeing the movie during New York City Comic-Con, which was in October, a month before. Okay, so Jason Reitman and his writing partner, who's actually directing this one, they've been known to do some funny sleight of hand. So we'll see what happens. But the fact that they just wrapped up now, so it's July, and you're talking what, December? That's another 5 months. Can they get the editing done? I'm sure they can, but also it depends on. I know Sony's editors have been kind of overtaxed, especially when they did with the Spider-Verse.
Yep.
So who knows? That, they might be renegotiating things behind the scenes that we're not aware of, and that could cause some delays, which would push it to 2024. But we'll see what happens, guys. But that's what I have going on. In fact, speaking of Ghostbusters, if your guys are Guardians of the Galaxy fans, I know I said Ghostbusters, you can hop over to my channel. I actually have two quick 2-minute interactions each, one with one of my teammates and my wife, Mrs. Dimension, interacting with Michael Rooker, and also interacting with Sean Gunn, who, of course, they played Yondu and Kraglin in Guardians of the Galaxy. So if you want to see them meet some Ghostbusters and have a nice, fun interaction and find out something that nobody knew about Michael Rooker, you want to check that out, guys. Dre, what do you have something special going on tomorrow? You and Colin, right?
I have a lot actually going on. Let's, because I didn't realize how much I got booked. So apparently, here, let's start with this. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. on the Collector Safe Space, myself and Cyborg Soda, Jason, we're going to be sitting there talking from 3 to about 4 o'clock. We're just going to open some toys. We're going to talk movies. Jason and I, we have a lot of varied opinions, and we butt heads on a couple things, so it's going to be fun. He's very animated, and I love talking with him.
He is. Yeah, he is.
So it'll definitely be fun. And
if anyone's not familiar with him, he's part of the the Overgrown Third Graders podcast,
which you should be, because they're celebrating their 1 year next year, folks, on the 11th. So you need to be checking that out.
You mean next week? You said next year.
Oh, next year. Sorry, next week. Ooh.
You said they're celebrating their 1 year next year.
I know. I get. Okay. Smart ass. So we got that tomorrow from 3 p.m. Eastern time till about 4 p.m. Eastern time. Then on Saturday evening, Everything Collects Plastic Collectibles is interviewing me, doing a Q&A session with me. I have not figured out the time, but it's going to be on his channel. So go to Chris's channel. He's our Canuck up north who wants to interview me. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then next week, Sunday, a week from this Sunday, on July 16th, your boy, and I'm not going to say that, your boys, the New Day, Dave and Dre, are going to be on Yukon Phil's channel talking about, guess what, folks? This stream right here, How did the two guys get together? What did we do? Why did we do it? We'll answer all those questions and more. And
What
that's
did
going to
you
be
do,
on
Ray?
Yukon Phils.
Yes, and also, by the way, guys, if you need some updates on what Dre is up to, of course, his channel has been rebranded the Collector's Safe Space on YouTube. So you want to check that out and follow him both on Instagram and on YouTube for all the latest and greatest that's going on. And also, if anyone out there wants to send Dre a little happy birthday message, because he's got a birthday coming out on
Oh, boy.
July 18th.
Yes, sir, I do.
So you can send all birthday wishes to his Instagram or through YouTube, maybe on a video, a little shout out to him. Or, if you want to send him a little something, a little card, maybe a gift, a little memento,
A little cheddar. A little cheddar.
you can always reach out to him through his channel and get the 411. And by the way, don't we have something else going on?
We do. We have
Something
the
that begins with the letter D.
Oh, goodness.
Begins with the letter D, ends with the letter D. Online platform. Discord.
Oh, sorry. I didn't even think about that. We do have our Discord, folks. For those of you that are either new members to the Collector Safe Space and or are people that have been very supportive of the Collector Safe Space, we have a Discord channel that myself, Dave, and Carlos T3 Collects are the admins of, and we are the co-founders of this group. So we have several different channels for people to support their YouTubers. We are putting out all kinds of great stuff on there. We have a lot of great people already on there.
A special channel on there for toy, for like if you're into collectibles. Believe we're launching a channel on there that is going to be all your basic information on, like, if you're looking for some deals on various collectibles and the different platforms like Big Toy Store, Entertainment Earth, Amazon. If you're looking for some money saving links out there to get some pretty cool collectibles, that's going to be on our Discord as well. So it's not just a hangout. It's not just throwing out links to help promote each other's channels, but we're actually going to have a Discord channel on there itself devoted to collectibles and some bargains for those collectibles, guys. So
also,
keep an eye out.
That we just opened up that today, and we also are doing. We have another channel dedicated to the affiliates. So people like our friend Aaron and our friends Carlos and Colin that do have affiliate links. If you choose to order something and want to support them and their YouTube gains, you will have. There's a channel for that too. And if you happen to be a member of our group and you wish to do that, go right ahead in there too. This is a very, very awesome time to be a member and to be a part of this. This has been a year in the making. October of this year marks our 1 year anniversary. And to me, it has grown leaps and bounds. The people, the men and women that are in this group are doing some great big things. And it makes me feel good to be going to my 45th birthday to see something positive come out of it.
Wow, and you're old.
I know. You're not much old. You're not that far behind there.
But I look younger.
Not that far.
I make this look good.
Listen. See, he took my line. I said, I make this look good. But, yeah, he says, just because you got hair, bro. I like to shave it. Look, streamlined, like Vin Diesel.
No gray. Okay.
Oh, I got gray hair. This is where I got the grays. But yeah, folks, we got a lot. And we also, just in case if you guys wanted to know, if you want to celebrate with me on my birthday stream, there will be a live stream on the Collector Safe Space to celebrate my birthday. Dave, Colin of EC Collecting, and T3 Collects Carlos will be the guests. They're going to be guest hosting. We're going to be cracking jokes, making fun of me on my birthday, which is all. They're going to enjoy the crap out of that. But also, we have.
Oh wait, there's more.
There's going to be people probably stopping in. I know that people are going to want to stop in and say what's up and crack jokes, and we'll probably have guests we'll probably have a revolving door of at least one or two guests that want to stop in. So if you want to, it's going to be on July 18th, my actual birthday. It'll be from 8 p.m. till I'm guessing till people say we want to get the hell off. We didn't really set an end time for that one, so it's going to be just a lot of fun, just celebrating my birthday, but just enjoying. Like, the one thing I like to do is just hang out with my friends. The older you get, the better. I like my circle to be small, and my circle is large with larger than life with the personalities. but it's a small circle, and I love my brothers more than they know.
Yes, sir.
So it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, folks, I think we filled you guys up with enough information on what we're doing. And again, for those on Spotify, I think we can edit the Spotify profile where we can give you our access to the links. Dave really is the one that monitors that.
Yep.
I monitor our Twitter. So if you can't find anything on the Twitter page, I post the links to Spotify through there, and I post it on our Instagrams. So make sure you're just checking back with us.
And like we said, you guys can always message us through the email at the Outer Dimensions Podcast at gmail.com, our Instagram at the Outer Dimensions Podcast on Instagram,
Twitter at the Outer Dimensions Pod.
And of course, you can always reach out to either Dre at the Collector Safe Space on YouTube and on Instagram, or me, Dave's Dimension, at Dave's Dimension, Dave's_Dimension on Instagram, and Dave's Dimension 78 at gmail.com. But guys, until next time, this has been Dave and Dre with the Outer Dimensions Podcast. What do you got to say, Dre?
Watch your head on the way out of the portal, folks. And hey, we'll see you on the next time.
Catch you on the